Russia's war economy isn't collapsing. In fact, on the surface, it's still functioning. Factories are running. Government spending is flowing. The economy hasn't seized up. But that's exactly what makes the risk harder to see. Because beneath that surface stability, Russia's war-driven economy is building a silent financial trap, one that doesn't explode overnight, but tightens slowly over time. The longer this system runs, the more money it requires just to sustain itself, and the fewer options remain to reverse course without pain. In this video, we're going to break down how Russia's war economy is creating a financial trap that isn't obvious in the headlines, and why the real danger isn't a sudden collapse. It's becoming locked into a system that's expensive, inefficient, and increasingly difficult to unwind. Once you understand how this trap forms, you'll see why time is not on Moscow's side. If you walk through the streets of Moscow today, you wouldn't see an economy at war. You'd see a consumer boom. Wages are at record highs. Unemployment has practically vanished, and the government just reported that GDP is still growing. But there is a reason they call this a silent trap. While the surface looks like a military miracle, the foundations are being liquidated. As we head into 2026, the Kremlin is making a gamble that has never worked in history. They are burning their liquid gold reserves, hiking taxes to Soviet levels, and letting the nation's infrastructure rot, all to fund a war machine that is now consuming 38% of the entire federal budget. Behind the propaganda, a silent financial trap is closing. In January 2026, a massive new tax law took effect that will liquidate thousands of small businesses. Utility bills are jumping by double digits because the pipes are literally bursting underground, and the central bank is trapped in a war of its own. Today, we go behind the curtain of the 16.8 trillion ruble budget to show you the three invisible triggers that are about to snap this trap shut. Russia isn't just fighting a war in Ukraine. It is fighting a war against its own future. To understand the trap, you have to understand the trick. For 3 years, Russia has practiced military Keynesianism. This is a fancy way of saying the government is printing and spending massive amounts of money on one specific thing: war. When the state pays a factory to build a tank, 3 things happen. GDP goes up. A worker gets a high salary. The tank gets blown up. Economically, that third step is a disaster. Unlike a factory that builds a tractor, which then goes on to plant food and create more value, a tank is a dead-end asset. It produces zero future wealth. In the 2026 budget, this imbalance has reached a terminal phase. For the first time since the Soviet era, combined spending on social policy, education, and healthcare has fallen to just 24% of the budget. That is 1/3 less than before the invasion. The state is effectively starving the civilian economy to feed the war monster. But as the civilian side shrinks, so does the tax base. This is the first trigger of the trap. Russia is creating growth by destroying its productive capacity. For 2 years, the Kremlin told the Russian people they wouldn't have to pay for the war. In late 2025, that promise was officially broken. The 2026 budget isn't being funded by oil wealth anymore. It's being funded by you. Starting January 1st, the value-added tax, VAT, is jumping from 20% to 22%. But the real silent trap is what they've done to small businesses. In a desperate move to find 1.2 trillion extra rubles, the government slashed the threshold for the simplified tax system. Over 450,000 small businesses, the backbone of the Russian middle class, will wake up in 2026 to a 22% tax they never had to pay before. This isn't just a tax hike, it's a liquidation. When these businesses fail, the normal Russia dies with them. All that will be left are state-owned giants and war factories. While the budget for electronic warfare is up 400%, the budget for your home is being cut. In September 2025, the government released a forecast that sent shockwaves through the country. Utility tariffs, what you pay for water, gas, and heat, are set to rise by nearly 30% over the next 3 years. The logic is brutal. The Soviet-era pipes and power grids are 60 years old. They are failing. But because the federal budget is tied up in Ukraine, the state has no money for repairs. Their solution? Make the citizens pay for it through their bills. In 2026 alone, heating and water charges are jumping by 9.9%. This is significantly higher than the official inflation rate. It is a war bill delivered straight to the mailbox of every Russian pensioner. The silent trap here is physical. Even if you have money, if the pipes under your street burst and there are no spare parts due to sanctions, you freeze. Where is the money coming from to bridge the gap? In late 2025, Russia broke its final taboo. It began selling its physical gold reserves to China. For decades, these reserves were the holy grail of Russian sovereignty. But in November 2025, Russia exported nearly $1 billion worth of gold bullion to Beijing in a single month. Russia is now entirely dependent on the Chinese yuan. 90% of its trade is settled in a currency it doesn't control. This is the ultimate silent trap. Russia hasn't just replaced the West. It has traded its independence for a lifeline from Beijing. If China decides to turn off the yuan bridge, the Russian economy doesn't just slow down, it stops. The final guardian of the economy, central bank chairwoman Elvira Nabiullina, is fighting a losing battle. To stop inflation from hitting 20%, she had to hike interest rates to 21% earlier this year. As of December 2025, she managed to cut it to 16%, but the damage is done. At 16%, no normal business can survive. If you want to open a bakery or a repair shop, you can't get a loan. But if you make drones for the army, the state gives you a subsidized loan at 3%. This is crowding out. The state is sucking all the oxygen, all the credit, and all the labor out of the room. The silent trap is that the economy is becoming so distorted that it can no longer function without war. Peace would actually cause a recession because the normal economy has been allowed to die. Russia will survive 2026. The budget is signed, the gold is being sold, and the taxes are ready to be collected. But look at what they are trading for that survival. They are trading the heat in their homes. They are trading their small businesses. They are trading their gold, and most importantly, they are trading their independence to China. The economy isn't going to collapse tomorrow in a spectacular explosion. It is going to rust. It is going to become a silent trap where the lights are on, but the future is empty. Russia is winning the battle for its 2026 budget, but it has already lost the war for its own prosperity. The real winner of Russia's silent trap isn't in Moscow, it's in Beijing. If you want to see exactly how China is using Russia's desperation to build its own economic empire, you need to watch our next video on the yuan takeover right here. This is Powerconomy. We track the numbers that the world ignores. If you want to stay ahead of the next global shift, subscribe and hit the bell. Click the video on your screen now to see how the friendship with no limits just got a very expensive price tag.